Say again, sorry?
As we approach the Independence Day celebrations, your thoughts on how far our country has reached, and are you satisfied?
Well, successive governments have been running the country based on our fortunes in oil and gas. And recently we have acquired a debt problem that has grown. So there has been an emphasis on on paying public debt and of course reducing it, looking for sources of gas, and of course turning over the refinery to other people. But you know, when I look around me, people still, by and large, are holding their jobs, I think. Yes, I mean there has been some retrenchment, and some of that retrenchment, the retrenchment that has occurred in the oil sector has been lucrative, you know, in the sense that people have come away with lots of money, which they can now invest or treat as retirement funds for the rest of their lives. Not all retrenchment is bad, but some, of course, is bad, especially when it is retrenchment of young and younger people.
And we've seen that happen a lot in Retrenchment, because I don't know if you would have seen where Massey stores, for instance, they basically said that a lot of young people, they had to carry back their vehicles which they purchased.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad as bad, yes. So because, you know, when you have that, young people are now beginning to save and beginning to spend. So that's unfortunate. The good news associated with that is that new companies will be opening up, which will absorb these retrenched younger people. But it's nonetheless disheartening to learn and to know that younger people are being sent home. Because, you know, they begin to make commitments which they have to satisfy.
Yeah.
So that's not good. The question, of course, is how we resolve all these problems. And one of the things that we have kept saying is that we have to open up the economy by diversifying it, just like other countries that do not have an oil or gas base have had to do. So we have to develop products for export, and we've got to have foreign direct and investment, more of it, you know, into the country, right? And so we have a sense of what the solutions are, but we do not see the will via legislation in particular to take those solutions that we need to take. And then on top of all of that, we have a very, very bad crime situation. Of course, all crime situations are bad, but ours is extremely terrible. And we wonder whether the perpetrators of gang warfare and violence with impunity can be brought to heel. You know, some of us have resigned ourselves to the spate of violence that we've been witnessing, wondering whether the police are equal to each other. Now, the police are doing some work, and they are reporting, finding ammunition, guns, and so on, confiscating guns in the hands of the wrong people. But there are too many people with hardly any conscience, hardly any recognition of the need to solve problems through talk, through discussion, through debate, you know, through reason. More and more people are not using those devices now to solve problems. They are having recourse to violent weapons to solve problems. And innocent people are caught up. You know, if the violence was dealing with those who are actually dispensing it, you know. But no, it's gang warfare. It is emotional problems causing people to solve their problems in their own way. And it's almost as if the society has lost its soul because every day it's a new spate of violence, a new bad news. So I'm saying on the crime front, we have not been doing very well. But we are still a richest kind of society. If you look around, you'll see very, very clear signs of consumption. Look at the number of vehicles on the road, for example.
Yeah.
People seem to still have excess monies to spend, even if only on consumption goods or consumer goods. I don't know that enough people are taking to enterprise in order to expand the wealth, their own wealth, and the wealth of the country. But that's what people seem. The country, on the surface at least, seems still to be wealthy, at least compared to the other countries in the Caribbean.
I just want to go back on a point that you made earlier when you spoke about diversification. Do you think that we tap into all the resources that we have in order to diversify the economy? Or do you even see our economy being diversified away from oil and gas in the near future?
Well, what do you want to do with the diversification? You want to not move away from oil and gas. You want to keep oil and gas, but you don't want to depend only on those things, right? And you know that there has been some restructuring where that is concerned.
Yeah.
You know, for example, that there's been an arrangement with Venezuela to pipe their oil, right? Now, so I'm saying those are initiatives that we need to take. But those are political initiatives because they depend on the vagaries of international politics. We now have America lined up against Venezuela, using an economic embargo to force Venezuela into new elections, according to an American direction and perspective. Yeah, so you have that, but there are other things in the society which we can expand. We can do far more with tourism. We can do far more with agriculture. We can do far more with the creative arts, the creative expressions, the carnival industries, for example. There is so much that this country has produced that has not monetized or commercialized in a way that would consistently bring in money into the country. And I'm also saying that if other Caribbean countries can do it, I mean, some of them are in deep trouble, as you know, but they're still managing. If Caribbean or Caribbean neighbors can do that, and they don't have our oil wealth, or gas wealth, then we also can do that. And given the creativity of this country, we should be able to expand. And then government has to come in with initiatives. Government, of course, has, over time, have come up with initiatives, but they have not. I don't know that the focus on those very same initiatives has been as good, as strong, as has been necessary. So for me, the question of sticking to a program of diversification, and ensuring that in private sector and the government sector are involved in partnerships, public-private partnerships, and so on. While some of that has been going on, I don't know that enough of it has been going on to the extent of giving people hope. That if our oil, or when our oil and gas reserves fall, what we might be able to do. And then, of course, we don't have in our parliament the kind of collaboration that is necessary in building this country. So we've had legislation on gang warfare. We have had legislation on bail, and somehow you get the sense that the two major parties are not seeing eye to eye on what is good for the country, right? Mm-hmm. What is good for the country rather than for the parties themselves. And that's a political matter that the people will have to take care of. But the people have been treated as vote banks for most of their history, as probably all of their history. They are only fit to install one or the other of the major parties, install them into power, and then they are neglected thereafter in terms of their participation in the government itself, participation with their views in a structured kind of way. Mm-hmm. So the people have vote parties into power, and then they are neglected. After that, for the next 5 years, and they feel left out, and part of that frustration probably is expressed through violence, I think. Part of it, of course, is dropping out of the political process, becoming extremely cynical about what ought to be done. So a lot of things that are not going well, but we are still able to go to the supermarket and buy food. Some of us are buying online and so on. The consumption, though it has been smothered a little bit, is still alive and strong. Mm-hmm. But the question is how sustainable that is. In the meantime, our roads are falling into disrepair, some of them. On the main roads, I don't know when the last time was that you traveled around the Eastern Main Road.
Yeah.
The Eastern Main Road is terrible, even during the tenure of the last government, and they ignored the Eastern Main Road. Paynham now is in power, and you can hardly see anything happening on the Eastern Main Road right now. I'm just giving that as an example. But all of that, of course, depends on the extent to which people are involved in their own governance. Mm-hmm. And we need to have reform of both attitude and structure where the parliamentary process is concerned. These are issues that can take many, many programs. We are only talking here generally, Ms. Christie.
Definitely so. Dr. James, what is your hope for Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, first of all, I want us to return to the days when we respected one another. Right? I want to return to those days. I want an acceleration of the process by which people are going to get far more practically and efficiently involved in the way they are governed, and that they are not going to be relying on the discretions of a few people in the parliament and in the cabinet, which means that we have to have something happening with parliament that allows that to happen. The details of which we cannot pursue simply because we don't have enough time. But we need to have a parliamentary system where the various publics are properly represented, and where the cabinet does not control the legislature. So we need that. We need, in terms of the judiciary, we need faster processing of cases, right? We need to really reduce the backlog. We need to give people a sense that when crimes are committed, the justice is swift, but of course it must be in relation to due process. But all the delay that we are seeing here should evaporate. I'm using magical words so because things will happen like that. But we need to come up with systems which would ensure that cases are handled far more quickly.
And that, of course, is not an overnight process.
Well, no. We need an education system that is tied to productivity, to investment and productivity. Too many people are still coming up in the grammar school tradition, yes, where clearly their minds are developed and so on. But in terms of the skills that they have for contribution to the growth of the economy are hardly in evidence, right? There are lots of developed countries that rely on the education system to improve their ability to earn, right? Earn wealth on the personal level and on the national level. So we need to do something about restructuring the system to make sure that people are developing skills as they go through life, especially from teenage right up to, the end of their productive years. So I want that to happen, and I think we want to get to the stage where we go beyond racist perspectives or racist reflexes, right? To a situation where we are seeing everybody as people who need all the goodness of life without being affected by the color of their skin and hair, So we need more racist or racial respect, but we need to go in our attitudes, go beyond that to the point where we are seeing people not as belonging to particular ethnicities, though we must be aware of that, right? But, people on the same level, regardless of whether they are man or woman, Indian or African, as the case may be. We need some racial maturity in the country, and there's much more that we can.
All right.
We can identify. Sorry?
All right. Dr. James, let me just ask you your closing comments.
Closing comments? One can't have those. This is a conversation that continues. The question is, how do we install, how do we implement ideas that we have that are clearly healthy for the country? Mm-hmm. Ideas that are resisted by, certain stereotypes in the way we think and so on. How do we go beyond those aspects of our culture that inhibit our ability to grow with respect for each other and advance the country for the children of the future?
Yeah. Very, very well put together there, of course. Dr. James, I want to thank you so much for chatting with us this morning here on the Wake Up Call. Like you rightly said, we've come a long way, but there is much more we can do to be a better country. So thank you so much for your contribution this morning.
You're welcome, Christy.
Take care. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, so there we go. A brief conversation there with political analyst Dr. Winford James, of course. As we approach Independence Day on the 31st of this month, we'll be chatting, of course, with various bodies, various different people from different sectors on their perspectives and how they see Trinidad and Tobago as it is and how can we go forward. So we're going to toss to news right now. And when we come back, we'll continue our show here on PAC TV. Stay with us.